What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today, we got an absolutely massive piece of Destiny 2 news. And that's because Bungie just dropped an article called Lightfall and the Year Ahead. Now, we get these yearly updates, well, once a year, but they're absolutely huge. It shows us the direction Bungie wants to take the game, not only with the next big expansion, but with all of the different seasons up until the final shape. So, sit down, grab some popcorn, buckle in, because here we go. Now, first things first, Bungie took some time to address seasonal predictability. It's a complaint that arose over the last year where players were saying that seasons felt too similar in their design to one another. Every single time you would go to a seasonal vendor, grab seasonal bounties, and unlock seasonal upgrades, a lot of which were just copy and pasted from the previous season. So, Bungie actually says that Destiny 2 can sometimes feel too predictable. While some consistency is necessary for us to be able to regularly update the game and prevent players from having to relearn Destiny every 3 months, as well as to maintain our team health and sustainability, it is clear that too much predictability has created a lack of surprise and delight by the time some of our major updates get into your hands. They also state that aside from predictability, they're also hearing that there's just not enough to do. Some of the most dedicated players out there are simply wanting to have more things to sink their teeth into. So here are the 4 main goals outlined by this yearly update. So, leading up to the final shape, the big major expansion after Lightfall that's going to drop in 2024, they want to expand players' imaginations, bring challenge back to Destiny, enrich our content, and connect our guardians. So how are they going to do that? Firstly, with expanding players' imaginations. So Bungie talks about Season of Defiance, which is kind of breaking news the first time we've seen this, but this is going to be the season that's launching alongside the Lightfall expansion. So there's going to be Lightfall and going to Neptune and doing all of that stuff. That's its own expansion, but then there's also Season of Defiance that's going to be going on at the same time. Firstly, they talk about doing away with umbrals and umbral engrams. So after you've unlocked seasonal focusing, if you want to focus an engram into a particular seasonal weapon or armor, all you need is Glimmer and a seasonal engram. Additionally, seasonal engrams will be stored and tracked on seasonal vendors, so managing the engram bucket in your character's inventory will be much easier than it is today, thank goodness. They also say that they're not going to be asking you to hang on to big stacks of seasonal currencies. Instead, we'll be dropping singular keys throughout your playtime that allow you to extract bonus rewards from the chest at the end of the seasonal activity. This will create a simpler relationship where you know that if you have even one key, you're getting extra rewards. Again, that is so much more streamlined, so you don't have to get this one currency to then unlock another currency to have 500 to get the chest. You just get a key and then use that key to open the chest. Makes a lot of sense, honestly. Now, they do say keys won't drop every time you complete an activity. To compensate for this change, we've made the base rewards for each seasonal activity completion better. So when you do earn and spend a key, it's a meaningful bonus, not a requirement to engage in the seasonal playlist. Finally, by default, keys can drop from seasonal activities, which means you're no longer required to play content outside of the seasonal playlist and then go back in to chase seasonal rewards. Thank goodness, what a fantastic change. I just want to grind the new content, and Bungie finally realizes that. Now, they say additionally, in Season of Defiance, players can expect fewer total vendor upgrades, with each individual upgrade being more potent, and some upgrades even offering a variance on the way you interact with the seasonal activity. In Season of Defiance, we're also taking a big stab at the way we name our various progression systems and currencies. We want any player to read the name of something and immediately understand what it does. In short, spending more time playing and less time trying to understand what they're supposed to do. Now, crazy enough, Bungie actually continues from there and says after Season of Defiance, we'll head into Season of the Deep. Again, breaking news, Season of the Deep is Season 21, never heard before. But they say with some time under our belt to react to recent player feedback, Season of the Deep will not feature a vendor upgrade paradigm. The same will be true for the following season. This doesn't mean players will never see a vendor upgrade system again, but it means that we want to create more varied experimental frameworks and slowly create a wide array of different systems for players to show their investment into seasonal content. So you will not have a Season of the Deep seasonal vendor. It will be a completely new upgrade path, upgrade system, maybe no upgrade system at all. Maybe you're just going after the loot and the currencies and so on. That could be crazy. Now they continue. In both Season of the Deep and Season 22, the season after, the team is pushing the envelope to create more fresh activity experiences. Like when we first unveiled the Shattered Realm back in Season of the Lost, or debuted Battlegrounds in Season of the Chosen. Additionally, a big change is that Bungie is adding Guardian ranks to the game, and they actually say right here that no longer will the number next to your nameplate be the season's pass number. Instead, it's going to be your Guardian rank. So this is going to be a big game-wide change as a new way of representing how much you kind of play the game, know the content, all of that stuff. But moving on from there, we have the next section, weapon crafting. And guys, there are some big changes here. Firstly, they say to create independent chases for both crafted and non-crafted weapons, starting with Lightfall, fewer of our total weapons will be craftable, and more of our weapons with long-term sources will get value from random perk rolls. Then they say to allow these non-crafted weapons to stand head-to-toe with crafted weapons in Lightfall. In the year of Lightfall, more and more of our non-crafted weapons, starting with the new Raid Adepts this year, will have the ability to be enhanced. That's right, guys. You can get random roll weapons that can't be crafted and enhance them. So what does that mean? Well, those dropped weapons can start leveling up, use mementos, and gain access to both enhanced perks and enhanced intrinsic properties, but only the enhanced versions of the perks and masterwork that are already on the version of the weapon you are enhancing. And they say, simply said, with some time and resources, enhancing allows you to take the random rolled weapon you've obtained and enhance its existing roll to match the power of a crafted weapon. Guys, what a fantastic idea. And they end with, we are targeting to roll this out initially on Lightfall Raid Adepts at the launch of Season of the Deep. And long term, we want to expand this functionality to most of our new non-crafted weapon drops, but there are some technical hurdles we need to solve first. Wow, fantastic news. So this solves the big problem in the game right now that crafted weapons are just superior and they kind of negate the need to farm a lot of the random roll weapons. But now you actually have a reason to go and do a master raid, because if you get that adept raid weapon, the perfect roll, then you can enhance it. You can turn its perks into enhanced perks. You can get it some extra stats, all of that stuff. So now you're matching the power of a crafted weapon. And I would assume that this is going to expand to trials weapons, right? Get an adept trials weapons and enhance them to make them even more powerful. Again, this is what we've needed to really make random roll weapons worth chasing again. Moving on from there, they say for crafted weapons, we have some additional changes planned as well. You will never see deep sight on a weapon unless it is something you need to make pattern progress on. When you see a red border in game, you will know it's valuable. Wow. And then targeting Season of the Deep, we will also be adding a mechanism to activate deep sight on any craftable weapon they do not have the pattern for. So if you get a random weapon that you still need to unlock, you get the Akilos SMG and you still need to unlock the pattern for it, you can potentially turn that Akilos SMG into a deep sight and then, complete the objective or delete it or whatever to actually gain that craftable pattern. So they're making random roll weapons way more desirable, and they're also making it significantly easier to gain craftable weapon patterns. But moving on from there, guys, the next big point is bring challenge back to Destiny. And Bungie talks about how with the subclass 3.0 upgrades and all the synergies now that you have with weapons that interact with subclasses, things have kind of just gotten more powerful across the board. And the difficulty level of the entire game has definitely gone down. So what are they doing about this? Well, the first section is tuning abilities. They say, so starting with the Lightfall, we are moderately increasing ability recharge time across a wide selection of our abilities, as mentioned in the ability tuning preview last week. I did a video on that. It's going to be linked right up above if you want to check that out. They continue, we've also noticed that enemy combatants just aren't hitting as hard as we want them to, especially against max resilience guardians, so we're adjusting the amount of damage resistance granted by resilience and increasing the energy cost of resilience mods from 1 to 2 for minor mods and 3 to 4 for major mods. Wow. They continue, with build crafting updates in Lightfall, we believe great builds will be much more accessible to the community, and while we still want your gear and your mods to be critical, some of the buffs to Guardian's damage and survivability were just a bit too strong in the old system. And so we've taken this opportunity for a balancing patch to gear-driven buffs. Now then, Bungie says, I know those paragraphs might have been scary to read, but we don't think these changes are going to be a big swing of the balanced pendulum. More than anything, this is about reining in some unintended power creep that we saw over the last year. We're committed, as always, to making our Guardian feel like the ultimate monster-killing machine. Now moving on to the difficulty level, they say recently we've been happy with the level of challenge presented at the base Heist Battlegrounds playlist. To achieve this, we used a difficulty knob that enforces just how over-leveled we will let the players be compared to the enemies they're fighting. This knob has always been present across our activities, and it's adjusted based on how evergreen we want the challenge to be in those missions. So in Season of Defiance, they're going to use the same settings that they used with Season of the Seraph. Carrying this approach over, we are also going to be adjusting this same difficulty tweak on the Vanguard's Ops playlist, but they say we're not going to set this playlist knob to a level quite as intense as the Battlegrounds playlist, but we do want to use this setting to make Vanguard Ops a lot more engaging to the average Guardian starting in Lightfall. They also say this approach to power and difficulty is going to be present when players are roaming around Neroma. And while we don't want the entire game to feel like it's turned up to 11, we think these changes will help the enemy forces patrolling Neroma feel dangerous and worth your attention. So somewhat similar how in Season of the Haunted, the Leviathan, the enemies are kind of -10 like all the time to make them more challenging, so you're probably going to get a same vibe to that in Lightfall. Next up, they say something really interesting about power level. Now, they do say when Lightfall launches, we will have a power climb that is similar to that of the Witch Queen. But later in Season of the Deep, we don't plan to raise the power or pinnacle cap at all. So once you get to the max power within Lightfall, you're good. And maybe they won't raise it at all for that entire year, and instead they'll just use these difficulty knobs to make things like more difficult instead of forcing you to just go after gear with a higher number. Pretty crazy changes there, guys, but it's time to move on to the next main point, enriching our content. Essentially, make the existing content, the existing evergreen playlists better. And first of all, they start with the Crucible. So they say in Season of Defiance, we're looking at getting Countdown back into the game along with a respawn variant of the game mode we want to call Countdown Rush, where players must detonate/defuse both bombs on the map before the round ends. We also aim to run a series of Crucible labs, including a mode where the sandbox is dramatically changed, weapon damage, ability uptime, and even ammo are all adjusted in a new mode tentatively called Checkmate Control. This mode will reward players who use their smarts and their skill. So if the only way the enemy has been able to shut you down in the past is a solo blade barrage, they might be in trouble. This isn't all we've planned for modes, so keep your eyes on labs for more classic and all new modes this year. Now they do say they're also going to add more Crucible maps, which means the arrival of Meltdown in Season of the Deep, a brand new Vex Network map in Season 22, and the return of Citadel in our last season before the final shape. They also say they're going to be looking at the existing maps and doing a spawn retuning pass on many of them this year to improve how our various modes flow. They also mention with matchmaking, they don't feel like they've quite nailed the trade-off in fair matches and good connections. We still need to get features like dynamic skill ranges in-game to allow for players across all skill levels to get consistent high-quality connections in their matches. Thank goodness, because again, no one cares if you've matched someone with equal skill if they're teleporting around the map. They actually also say we're turning our eyes towards lobby balancing, where we aim to construct matches with a more consistent skill gap spread amongst players on both teams. Fantastic. This has been a complaint for years in most PvP games. Every single game out there thinks that you can put one high skill player and then all the rest low skill players on a team against a bunch of medium skill players. Like, obviously, the medium skill players are going to dump truck because you only have one high skill player on the other team. And they also talk about how there's going to be 3 Iron Banners per season this year. They want to improve the rewards and matchmaking of trials, and they're going to continue to make improvements to the competitive playlist. Now guys, moving on from there, something very exciting and very unexpected is that they're going to add an exotic mission rotator. So they say trials won't be the only thing getting love as far as rituals go, so on the PvE side of things, starting in Season 22, they're going to be adding an exotic mission rotator. So just like Legacy Raids and Dungeon Rotators, this rotator will feature exotic missions from the past and rotate on a weekly cadence and offer great rewards for players willing to do them. So again, starting in Season 22, they're going to contain exotic missions from Seasons 13, 16, and 19. So you're going to have Presage, Vox Obscura, and Operation Seraph's Shield on a rotator. So one week it's going to be Presage, next week Vox Obscura, next week Operation Seraph Shield, and you can go in there and play those missions. So that is such good news, guys. Like, some of the best content ever added to Destiny 2 has been secret exotic missions, right? And so now you can actually go back and play those and hopefully get rewards and even potentially get the exotics that were originally tied to these missions if you're a new player and you weren't able to do that. And hopefully in the future they bring back stuff like 0 Hour and the Whisper of the Worm mission, which were absolutely insane. But moving on from there, guys, another evergreen activity getting updated is strikes. So not only are they going to be raising the difficulty with the power level knob we talked about earlier, but also they're going to be refreshing the Lake of Shadows and the Arm Dealer strikes. Both activities have had their objectives and encounters reimagined and upgraded to match combat engagement levels of some of our more recent strike entities, such as Lightblade and Proving Grounds. So basically, if you see Arms Dealer in the Nightfall Rotator, it's no longer a completely free week to farm. It's going to be more challenging. In addition, they say, we are also taking strikes that have not been updated recently, such as Exodus Crash and the Inverted Spire, and dramatically reducing their presence in the Vanguard Ops playlist while eliminating them from Nightfall Rotators. These strikes will still be available for direct launch, but until they get brought up to the engagement parity of some of the other stuff, they'll not show up as often. Now, aside from strikes, something very interesting, they're going to be upgrading how Battlegrounds integrate with Vanguard Ops. Alongside Nightfall, the Season 16 and 19 Battlegrounds will be added to the Vanguard Ops playlist. We really like the fast enemy-filled chaos of Battlegrounds, so this year they're also going to be adding a selection of Battlegrounds as Nightfalls. This process will begin with Mars Heist Battleground, oh no, being part of the Nightfall rotation in Season of Defiance, and we expect more Battlegrounds to be following suit each season. So now, you guys, there's going to be Grandmaster Heist Battleground Mars. That is going to be quite the mission. Obviously, though, this is kind of exciting for me, like someone who plays a ton of Grandmasters. Just adding Battlegrounds to Nightfalls, now we have so much new content, right? Like, how many times have you guys done Glassway, right? It's been years now. So it's time for some new blood to be injected. I'm actually very excited for this. Now, Bungie also does mention with Grandmasters, they expect older Nightfalls to be rekindled by new loadout options since the match game modifier is being retired from Nightfalls with the launch of Lightfall. That's right, match game going away, so you really won't have to have so much for your loadout catered to be able to deal with shields. You can run way more synergistic builds. But continuing from there, we have a section called Looking Further. Now, they talk about making some targeted changes to ritual content based on what we've observed about why players engage with this content. They don't expect these changes to make it in for a season of Defiance, but some of the things they mentioned is this will include changes such as moving the initial source of obtaining exotic armor away from lost sectors and back into core rituals, no longer asking players to earn all 3 of the ritual pursuit ornaments in the seasonal challenges and allowing players to earn more rewards and complete more of their weekly challenges by playing the content of their choice, not just the newest seasonal activity playlist. This rebalancing of objectives and rewards is going to be a slow burn over the year of Lightfall, and we are going to take a more direct approach in our last season of the year, dedicating a significant amount of development towards a more core ritual focused season. Wow. They say while this season will have plenty of new activity and story content, we want to take the time right before the final shape to crisp up our core rituals and pursuits as we head into our final expansion of the Light and Darkness saga. This last seasonal effort is just getting underway, so expect more details as we get further into the year. Pretty crazy changes there. I mean, like not having to farm lost sectors and now shifting that focus, hey, farm Vanguard Ops potentially. Like, very, very interesting. I wonder if there's now going to be like daily modifiers for exotic drops in this content. Like, oh, if you play Crucible today, exotic helmets are dropping. That could be very cool. But next up, guys, the last big point here is connect our Guardians. So Bungie says a lot of what we have planned this year is right around the corner, including big features like commendations and guardian ranks with the launch of Lightfall. The commendation system is the first step in creating stronger connections between guardians this year. So they say it can be hard to reach out to someone you don't know. Commendations are an icebreaker, a simple way of saying thanks to players you appreciated playing with. Over time, players will accumulate a ton of different commendations that will help build a story of how others in Destiny 2 perceive you. So, certain commendations like Pace Setter and Saint's Favorite are only available to be given in Trials of Osiris, while others like Perceptive and Knowledgeable are given out in raid and dungeon content. Eventually, the commendations you earn will become kind of a history for where you've been and what you've done. Interesting. Next up, Bungie talks about chat, saying we want to change our game-wide text chat channels from opt-in to opt-out. What this means is more players will naturally be put into our text channels. So if you want more frequent opportunities to reach out to your fellow Guardian, over time, we'd like to continue to invest in deeper chat moderation, better filtering, and bigger features like speech to text. This could backfire spectacularly, especially if you're playing PvP, but we'll see how it goes. And the last thing Bungie talks about is Fireteam Finder. That's right. Looks like it's finally coming. They say the last piece of our social puzzle for the year is our biggest, Fireteam Finder. Initially, we hope to get our take on a first-class in-game looking for group tool in players' hands this summer in Season 22, alongside our next reprised raid, making a perfect pairing for new raiders. But as our plans became more solidified, we realized that the features needed to create a truly top-notch LFG experience were going to require a bit more time. So, while that reprised raid is still coming out this summer, we're pushing Fireteam Finder to our final season of the year along with a brand new dungeon. Now, they say with Fireteam Finder, you can queue up from anywhere in the game. The ability to tag your posts with keywords to describe the kind of group you're running and the kind of people you're looking to recruit is also available. The option to create groups where folks can join automatically, allowing you to get right into the action, and the power to create groups where you as a leader can approve and deny each person trying to join up, giving you tight control over the kind of group you're putting together. And so, I mean, wow, if Bungie can really pull this off, this is going to be huge for the game. The fact that you can put together groups for raids and dungeons in-game rather than having to go to a third-party website or a Discord or something, like the majority of players, especially casual players, are just not interested in doing that, so they can actually now participate in some of the harder, more challenging content. Again, if Bungie pulls this off, it could be just massive for the game. And guys, that is it for the last piece of major information in this just massive update. So really interesting stuff coming throughout this year. I'm very excited to be covering and playing it. And of course, guys, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to support it by liking and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content and some great memes, follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Guys, again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.